Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Great Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to live the good life. For too long, common sense principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. What is peace? What is America first? Who decides? Who's pro-war? You know, we'd have a different, very different world today if Kamala Harris were president. She'd be agreeing with Bernie Sanders. She'd be agreeing with Chadworth Catarleson. In other words, it would be Iran pretty much free to do whatever it wants, and Israel having to sit there, and the United States having to sit there. I can't think of a great president of the United States who would ever have done that. Not one. Washington? Lincoln? Not one. Reagan? And Donald Trump is one of the greatest presidents in American history. I've told you over and over again over the years, Donald Trump is not an isolationist. He's never even used that word to define who and what he is or believes. He's not an appeaser. He's not a pacifist. Foreign policy is about what? What have I written and what have we discussed here? It's not about ideology. Never wars, quote unquote. Forever wars, quote unquote. Always unexplained, and yet apparently in every circumstance it applies. But it can't. Every circumstance is different. Different countries, different threats. Foreign policy should be looked at not as an ideological matter. That could kill you. As a prudential matter. As President Trump calls it, common sense. You look at the facts. You look at the countries you're dealing with, our experience with them, the world's experience with them, and you apply our principles. Our principles. So what is peace when we're dealing with Iran like this? What is peace? Now, you know that peace is not isolationism when a country keeps threatening to destroy you, tries to assassinate our president. is hell-bent on having nuclear weapons and building tens of thousands of ballistic missiles. We don't have an iron shield. We don't have any defensive system sufficient enough to stop any of this. Some of it, but not enough of it. If we had ballistic missiles raining down on our major cities, you know what we would do about it. And you know quite well that if any country within our hemisphere, let alone on our border, was developing nuclear missiles, that is, nuclear warheads and missiles to fire them at us, we wouldn't tolerate that. So why is it that when it comes to the state of Israel, they're expected to tolerate it? And why is it that when it comes to us, we should tolerate it? Is that America first? That's never been America first under any interpretation or definition of America first, because it's not. Two simple words: America first. Our enemies would love this. They do love it. And who gets to decide? The isolationist radicals, they want you to believe that Donald Trump has deceived you, that he's defied his own statements. We've heard some of this from people on some of our friendliest platforms. The problem is them. That's their position. It's never been Donald Trump's position. He's never conducted himself that way. You see, there's some confusion out there, and it's intentional. That if you're prudent with the use of military force, use it as a last resort, but nonetheless feel the trigger needs to be pulled, you're a warmonger. Over at Mediaite, some guy wrote, Mark's pro-war. I'm not pro-war. I'm anti-terrorists with nuclear weapons who keep saying they're going to use it against us. That's not pro-war. That's pro-American. I tried to have the gentleman come on the program tonight. He refused. Kobe Howell over at Mediaite. He's the big guy there. He said he didn't want to be insulted and so forth. And so, look, Kobe, I'll tell you what. You weren't going to be insulted. I wanted to have a real discussion. I don't understand what you do at Mediaite. All of you. I don't understand why you have these hyper dishonest headlines. I don't understand your mission. And I wanted you to explain it to the American people. Because I see little distance between you and Media Matters. And is that what you're about? Aggregating things, slapping crazy titles on them? And certainly from center left. More left. And I don't understand why you're an apologist for these extremists, effectively, when you give a description of Chatsworth Tarleton and you leave out completely his anti-Semitism and his promotion of anti-Semites. That's wrong. But you didn't want to have that discussion. It would have been a very professional discussion. No name calling, no insults. I had my producer tell you that. I hope you'll rethink this. I really do. These guys can't do enough stories with me in them. And then every year they put out a list. Most influential media figures, right, Mr. Producer? Well, if I'm not on your list of 65, why do you keep talking about me, writing about me, and reporting about me? Don't you think that's kind of dishonest? I should be right at the top of your stupid list, but it doesn't matter. The vast majority of America doesn't know what Mediaite is if I don't mention it. But it's part and parcel of the problem. We have this site called Axios, which is quite left. And they have a reporter there, Barak Ravin. And he used to be the go-to guy for the Biden administration, for the Biden State Department, them and Politico and a few others, where basically they're scribes for people who leak to them. And in the Trump presidency, the isolationists are leaking like hell. They're relentless. It's almost every day to him, mostly to him. And all these stories, the president denies them, other people deny them, trying to show a terrible rift between Israel and the president or the United States, and on and on and on. And the president put out a statement today saying what they had was false. And there are reports, as I surmised, about who's involved, which offices are involved. But I'm going to keep my powder dry until there's a little bit more meat on that bone. But it is as I expected. I don't leak to the media, by the way, as a footnote. You can ask the media. I don't. If I have something to say, I'll say it on the record. I don't talk a lot to the media. Conservative media, sure, but I'm talking about the corporate media. Why should I? I have a radio show, a TV show, I have a digital show. I can talk to you directly. And I don't believe what I say will be reported accurately anyway. I've spent tens of thousands of hours behind this microphone explaining my views in great detail. I've written 10 best-selling books with thousands of notes on the back, footnotes and endnotes. And this is what I want to discuss from the guy from Mediaite. Why is it that you never report about these things? You really want to know my view? They're spelled out in exquisite detail over the course of over 2 decades. My views are not a secret. I'm here today to express them, to explain them, if necessary, to defend them or alter them. Donald Trump has explained what America First means, and we have really outliers, some of whom I think have serious psychological issues, who insist that they get to define or insist on projecting onto Donald Trump what their views are, even though Donald Trump has never embraced them. Of course, he's embraced their support, needs votes, but he's never embraced their views. I told you this, and I've told you this over and over again. Just to keep throwing the word around, peace, 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 doesn't make it so, nor does it mean the people who keep using it are for peace or have any idea what peace is about. If you have a guy next door and he keeps telling you he wants to kill you, and he supports and funds individuals who've killed family members of yours, and he's telling you he wants to get a weapon strong enough to blow your house up, you just sit there and say peace means just sitting on my ass and watching this and listening to this? Of course not. That's not peace. Iran with nuclear weapons and now ballistic missiles, we've learned about, that's not peace. The question is, how do you ensure peace? How do you ensure that the United States is never hit by these weapons? You're talking about a 7th century barbarian police state, a primitive regime that believes God, their God, requires them to kill us, as you'll learn when you read my book on power. Now, we have a brain for a reason. We take into consideration what we know, what we've experienced, what we've seen, what we know about the death cult. That's called knowledge. That's what human beings use to make decisions. Those who promote this radical isolationist position, all they keep doing is yelling, no more war. Does the enemy agree with them? I mean, what is this, 3rd grade? And yet their conduct gave aid and comfort, I believe, to the Iranian regime. They thought they could hang on listening to these people. They were undermining the president's message. He's making the decision. You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's one thing to have a disagreement with President Trump. It's one thing to have been never Trump. You know, it's another thing to have been an aggressive primary where names are thrown around and so forth and so on. Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, not even in the primary. He used some horrible things about Trump and so forth and so on. And you're done. It's over. And you move on. And the president has brought people like this into his cabinet, into his confidence. That's the way it works. That's the way it worked when Ronald Reagan got elected, and I worked for him. And I remember all these Bush guys attacking him left and right, left and right. What did he do? He appointed the top Bush guy, George H.W. Bush, as vice president, just as he appointed J.D. Vance, his vice president, despite being called Hitler and so forth. That's not what I'm talking about. And you have a patriotic, American-loving, smart, historic, iconic president. A commander-in-chief who's trying to sort through complicated issues. Of course you can give your opinion. I do. Of course you can disagree. I have. That's the way it is. It's a democracy with free speech. But when you leak against him, you try and handicap him, you try and undo his policies, you viciously attack people who may have a different viewpoint than you do, even though you're the outlier and they're not. When you claim to represent the 77 million people who voted for him, when 76 million of them don't even know who the hell you are, you're destructive. You're dangerous. You can try and influence policy using argumentation, using persuasion, facts, evidence. Great. We should all do that. I do that all the time, right here and behind a microphone. But when you literally try and damage him, especially in a wartime footing, that's not normal. That's not normal at all. That's a disgrace. And that's what they're doing. No, I'm not for war. I'm for peace. I'm against the Islamo-Nazi regime that has slaughtered over 600 Americans, thousands of casualties. Enough is enough. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/Levin, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Now, you've been able to watch live what Israel's facing. Ballistic missiles are the size of a school bus. School bus. Thousands of pounds of, effectively, TNT. Tons, actually. And they can blow up an apartment building, just one hit. Imagine living in a country, the sirens are going off, the people are running to protect. This has been going on for several years, even before Israel attacked Iran to try and prevent Iran from attacking us and them. And it's intensified since October 7th. You mothers and fathers, imagine this every day and night, grabbing your kids, running them into some protective room or the basement of a garage, 1, 2, 3 times a day. Imagine what that does to people psychologically when they can't go out in parks, have recesses, even go to school or go to work on a regular basis. I want to get into that because they have a right to live in a free society too. Are you concerned about the rising number of judges who've been limiting President Trump's executive orders? Now, if you're not concerned yet, you should be. When these judges use injunctions to block President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate from the American people, it is we, the people, who lose out. Thankfully, the Heritage Foundation has the policy solutions to stop these threats to our judicial system. So go to heritage.org and get your free copy of the How to Stop Activist Judges ebook. This resource explains exactly what these judges judges are doing, why it matters, and how under the Constitution they can be stopped. President Trump's agenda is in danger, but even more importantly, the safety of Americans and the future of our nation could be at stake. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your free ebook today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin on the front line of liberty. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're going to get into the War Powers Act in the next hour or two, which I've discussed over some 20 years. I'd say 2 or 3 or 4 times, Mr. Producer. And, of course, I've been consistent in my viewpoint. The Democrats always raise it to try and cripple a Republican president. They never raise it when it's a Democrat president, just as a consistent political matter. Then, of course, we have the radical libertarians who are isolationists. And they claim to use it too. And they all claim it's constitutional, it's mandated. It's an amazing thing. The War Powers Act, I think the first time it was passed in 1973. It's not in the Constitution, just so you know. But what about the Declaration of War, Mark? We'll get into this, I promise you. It's important, because that's the latest effort by Thomas Massie and probably Rand Paul and others to join in with the Democrats to try and cripple Donald Trump. Commander-in-Chief. There's one Commander-in-Chief. Well, what can Congress do? Congress can do a lot, but this is not it, and I'll explain that as well. It really amazes me. If China were to invade Taiwan, I would be speaking at the top of my lungs and using my arguments about how we should help Taiwan. We've had a military alliance with Taiwan. We have a military alliance with Israel. And these isolationists, they just don't care. And the communist Chinese and the fascistic Russians and the communist inbred in North Korea and the Islamists are relying on the Chatsworth-Catarlsons and their ilk. But there's another thing I wanted to mention. Not all, I underscore, not all, perhaps not even most, but enough. Many of these people have kind of a sick Jew hatred. Kind of a sick Jew hatred. And it's amazing to me when media and these other outlets write about this stuff, they don't really get into that. They just think it's a big game, a fight among MAGA supporters. It's not a fight among MAGA supporters. There's fake MAGA and there's real MAGA. Their positions are not real MAGA. Their positions are not Donald Trump's positions. He's MAGA. He's the president. He gave speeches. He raised money. He ran commercials. He put himself up for a vote. None of them did. None of them. The state of Israel, look at the quality of life there right now. Look at the quality of life. Look what's happening to that civil society. You know, a country's not just about survival. Can you imagine each day we hope to live and it's about survival because a country keeps shooting missiles into our country? Because a country keeps arming terrorists in Canada and Mexico to attack us, and they do? Can you imagine if Canada had 180,000 short and mid-range missiles? Can you imagine if Mexico had sent terrorists over our southern border and slaughtered several thousand people? And could you imagine the country backing all this is within a whisper of having a nuclear weapon that has ballistic missiles, 3,000 of them, and in 6 months could have 10,000 of them? And we don't have the capacity to shoot very many of them down. Imagine then when these missiles are shot into Detroit or Dallas or Houston or Los Angeles and Sacramento, in New York, in Newark, in Philadelphia and Baltimore, in Chicago. wherever they wish to shoot them. Imagine that. Missiles the size of a school bus that leave massive craters. And leaving them alone is called peace. Peace. History is full of examples like this, and this peace winds up in death, massive wars. Rather than attack Benjamin Netanyahu, rather than attack Donald Trump, we should be cheering them. We should be celebrating them. We should thank God that we and our fellow citizens were smart enough to put him back in the presidency. And we should thank God that the people of Israel were smart enough to elect the Netanyahu coalition and put him in as prime minister. Because what they're doing to Iran now protects us. So when people ask, and they know the answer, but they ask anyway, they're propagandists. What does Israel ever do for us? What Israel's doing for itself, it's doing for us as well. And they're paying the price with their citizens, with their military, with their quality of life. They're fighting for their survival, and they're fighting in a way that, of course, protects our civil society and our way of life. It's not an accident that they sought to assassinate Donald Trump. It's not an accident that they keep saying that death to America is not a slogan, it is a policy. And as I've said again and again, we've experienced what the Islamo-Nazis are capable of. Just with hijackers, can you imagine, with nuclear weapons and chemical weapons and biological weapons, and we're just supposed to wait and get hit to see if the EU supports us or something like that? And here's the problem. Chatsworth, Catarleson, and his ilk, they have no answer to any of this, other than we provoked them. We provoked the primitives. We provoked the barbarians. We provoked the Islamists and the Marxists. We provoked them. I want you to listen to what Donald Trump said over and over and over again. He's not the liar, they are. Cut 3, Mr. Producer, go.
You cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. You cannot let it happen because bad things will happen if that happens. But everybody stopped. They were ready to make a deal. We would have made a deal that was great for everybody. No nuclear weapons. You can't give them nuclear weapons. Now they're going to have a nuclear weapon. Don't let Iran have nuclear weapons. That's my only thing I have to tell you today. Don't let them have it. They would have never had them, including Iran. They can't have a nuclear weapon. That's all. They can't have nuclear weapons. It's too destructive, too powerful. They can't have it. But I wanted to make a deal with them. No nuclear weapons. You can't have nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are the single greatest threat to this world, to the whole world. And Viktor Orban understands that, and some others do too. I just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. And they weren't going to have one, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon. That was the only thing. The one thing I said, you cannot have. I just didn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I said, we're going to make a great deal. Everybody's going to be happy. You're going to be rich as hell again. Everything's going to be great. But you cannot have a nuclear weapon.
You can't let Iran have nuclear weapons.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. We have a very hostile country.
Let's stop here for a moment. It goes on and on and on. We all knew this is part of MAGA. This is part of America First. Why do you think he keeps saying that? Just because he likes saying it? Now, who would have control of this nuclear weapon? Here's President Trump on CNN in 2016, who has a better understanding of the Islamists than virtually anybody else, certainly more than Chatsworth Catarleson, who seems to love them, and his ilk. Cut 5, go.
Do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
In Islam itself?
You're going to have to figure that out, okay? You'll get another Pulitzer, right? But you're going to have to figure that out. But there is a tremendous hatred, and we have to be very vigilant. We have to be very careful, and we can't allow people coming into this country who have this hatred of the United States.
I guess the question is,
and of people that are not Muslim.
I guess the question is there a war between the West and radical Islam, or is there a war between the West and Islam
It's
itself?
radical, but it's very hard to define. It's very hard to separate.
Mm-hmm. And is he on target? This is a great man. This is a great man. He's a great president. We're very blessed. We truly are. The Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Tom Masseys, the Rand Pauls, the Chatsworth Carlsons, all of these people, they're not even a footnote to history. This is a remarkable man. Remarkable man. But does Iran deserve to be annihilated? Should we actually support regime change? Listen to this guy. Cut 4 from 2012. Go.
We, the only country allowed to make preemptive strikes. Who the hell does Iran think it is?
That's it. Actually, I know you're sort of kidding, but I agree with that. I think we are the only country.
No, I'm not
with the
kidding at
moral
all.
authority. We are. That's absolutely right. The only country with the moral authority sufficient to do that. The only country that doesn't seek hegemony in the world. I do think, I'm sure I'm the lone voice in saying this, I think Iran deserves to be annihilated. I think they're lunatics. I think they're evil.
Has that changed, or have you changed? Carlson, no, you've changed. And so we should go along with you? Why should we go along with you? Who are you? Nobody. Nobody. I can go on and on with his past comments. You know, people change their minds, but not so fundamentally and radically. And then trash those who stand on their principles because they still realize what a grave threat the Islamo-Nazis are. Before we go to the break, I want you to hear from Colonel Richard Kemp in Tel Aviv today. He was the commander of British forces in Afghanistan. He's there. He's experiencing this. He's watching what's going on. He's a huge friend of the State of Israel and the United States of America. Cut 6, go.
I'm Richard Kemp. Here in Tel Aviv last night, as in the rest of Israel, the people were braced for a night of hell promised by Ayatollah Khomeini. The devastation, he said, would go on till dawn. When it happened, a few buses got dented in Herzliya, and unfortunately, a few people suffered light wounds. Meanwhile, Israel is raining down actual hell on the Iranian regime, destroying their ballistic missile and drone stocks, eliminating their most senior military commanders, and smashing up their nuclear facilities. At the same time, the G7 countries meeting in Canada have said, we have been consistently clear that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. But they have left it to Israel to actually stop them. Most of these timorous and bewildered leaders have been bleating about de-escalation and more negotiations. That means Israel should stop attacking and leave Iran's nuclear weapons program to flourish. What they should have been doing is urging Israel forward and giving it all the support it needs, while condemning Iran and calling for the end of the regime, encouraging Iranians to free themselves from Khomeini's brutal repression. Israel's valiant fighting men and women are defending not just Israel, but the whole of the Middle East and the West. They deserve our unequivocal support and encouragement.
And for the vast majority of you, you understand that. The vast majority of Republicans, looked at a recent poll, understand that. These people who say they're creating a new Republican Party and a new foreign policy, they're not creating anything. And if they were in power, they would ensure that our country would be in dire, dire, dire danger by these primitives with ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/Levin, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. So I moved to the other bunker, different part of the country, as I want to do. We go back and forth. And let's see here, Mr. Producer. Now, it used to be, and understandable, that when you had an ally, you stood with your ally just as your ally stood with you. But apparently with the isolationists who say we have a new foreign policy, which effectively is no allies, no forward bases, the oceans are good enough, that's insanity. None of that is true. Are we supposed to suspend our ability to reason, our God-given wits, to go along with basically grifters? These people don't tell Putin. They don't tell Putin peace, not war. They don't tell Qatar peace, not war, not terrorism. It's only us. So you got to wonder why. So I said, Rush used to say, follow the money. But there's something horribly wrong if the view is that a new Republican Party and a new foreign policy basically regurgitates Bernie Sanders and Tlaib and Omar. Do you realize these people who claim to represent us, who claim to be MAGA, they're fake MAGA, they're not real MAGA, do more trash talking and trash mouthing against Israel than any of these terrorist countries? They trash Israel more than they do Iran. They trash Israel more than they do Qatar, who they're in bed with. They trash Netanyahu more than they trash Putin, who they're in bed with. Don't you find that strange? It is strange. That's not only not real MAGA, that's not real Americanism. As a matter of fact, that's anti-Americanism. More when I return. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Look, no re-engaging with Iran. They either surrender or they don't. They either surrender all the material. We go in there and we destroy it all. Or this keeps up. And ladies and gentlemen, the issue shouldn't be, will we get involved to help Israel? The issue should be, will we get involved to help ourselves, for God's sakes? Even the nature of the discussion is absurd. Ami Kozak is a comedian. Now, unlike the isolationist comedians who claim to be historians and are clearly anti-Semites, he's none of those things. He's a comedian. He does a little bit on the moral clarity and insight of Chatsworth Tarleton. And he does a good imitation, I thought. And I think it's time for a little bit of levity, don't you? So here it is. Listen up, turn up the volume, have a good laugh. Go.
How do you feel about Israel versus the Iranian regime? I mean, I've always said that the Iranian regime is evil and needs to be destroyed. There's no question. And what I think they're doing now, Israel at least, is what they're doing is appalling. What? I certainly don't want to be involved in it. But it's, like, what are we doing? And so, I mean, I have no ill will against anyone. I don't hate anyone. I have no biases. All of mine are out in the open. I just feel that, you know, I don't hate anyone. I have no animus towards anyone. But I certainly despise Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, the neocons, Mark Dubowitz, Mark Levin, all my old colleagues at Fox, my old self. Your old self? Yes, I hate my old self. I hate myself completely. I hate myself yesterday. I love myself today. I don't know how I'll feel about myself tomorrow, but that's my business. Who knows? Who knows how they're going to feel about themselves? When I look in the mirror, I don't even know who that is, actually. I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't know who you are. What? Are we in a simulation? It certainly feels that way. A simulation. And I love it. But I also despise it. And I'm sorry, this doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, but who are you to tell me that I'm incoherent? But you are being very incoherent. I know. It's working. So who do you want to win? Russia. Russia? What? Oh.
Look, people imitate me all the time. It's funny. But this is funny and very realistic, I think. Very good comedian, Ami Kozak. We will post this for your entertainment. I think we did already. Should you be interested in taking a listen. President of the United States says, no ceasefire. Can you folks tell me how many times in war, when a country's losing, you can call for a ceasefire, or can get other countries to pressure a country to pressure the winning country, the country that's winning, to stop? Like this is some kind of baseball game? Those of us who don't want forever wars, this is the problem. That creates a forever war, doesn't it? This is an enemy that needs to be fundamentally and utterly defeated, whether Tulsi Gabbard likes it or not. And that's what we did with the Japanese. That's what we did with Germany. That's what we did with Italy. The Greatest Generation. It wasn't a forever war. It lasted 4.5 years. And that was that. Shouldn't we learn from that experience? You don't have a terrorist regime that threatens to destroy your people, caught red-handed trying to murder our president. You've got them on their back. The Israelis have them on their back. The Israelis have done this with support from us. But they're the point of the spear. They're the ones that have to deal with the ballistic missiles, and so forth and so on. Have an opportunity like this, where after all this time, the Israelis control the air. They've taken out most of the senior military personnel. Khomeini's hiding, wetting his depends in his robe. And then say, you know what, time out? Time out? And then we get the question, well, what happens afterwards? Chaos will ensue. This is just asinine. Nobody knows what's going to happen afterwards. We're not creating a democracy project. That's the point. But the Iranian people, more specifically the Persians, they will decide what they want. You know, when you're fighting a war, it's not hermetically sealed. You don't know every consequence that's going to result. But there are consequences that will result that are more important than anything else, like destroying a regime that wants to destroy you with nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. That is righteous. What the Israelis are doing is righteous. What the Israelis are doing, the entire world will benefit from. The entire world. Now, we have members of Congress who are working hard to undermine the commander-in-chief. We have members of Congress who are trying to prevent Israel, and hence the West, from defeating the primitives from the 7th century. They are Democrats and a handful of Republicans. They are dishonorable. They try to cloak themselves in the language of the Constitution. They are grotesque, actually. I've gone through this discussion before. I just went and looked, Mr. Producer. I've dealt with the War Powers Act before, have I not? Folks, you can go online and you can see my comments before. See, there's a treaty clause of the Constitution, which I strongly support. It's cut and dry. It's clear. We know the whole history behind it. It's in the Constitution. That if there had been or is some kind of a deal, to me, it should go to Congress. Specifically, it should go to the Senate under the treaty provision. But we have provisions in our Constitution, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief. Now, when you look at Madison's notes and you understand the debate that took place, they said one person needs to be in charge of war. One. And so they created the President of the United States, and they said he's the Commander-in-Chief. There was debate about Congress's participation. There was debate on whether Congress had to be part of the military decision-making, and they decided, no, it's just too unruly. And plus, if you have an urgency, it'll never get addressed. There's also a declaration of war provision in the Constitution, where Congress passes declaration of wars, typically at the request of the Commander-in-Chief. So you have the declaration of war provision, and you have the Commander-in-Chief provision. Where is there any authority whatsoever for Congress to pass the War Powers Act, limiting the power of the president? Well, Mark, is he a king? And then people start to sound like all the Marxist Islamists out there. Well, there's a third provision of the Constitution, and what is that? It's the spending clause. Congress has the power to deny funds, if it wishes, for any military action. Doesn't have to be limited to a full-blown war. And Congress has done that before. That's how we eventually lost in Vietnam. Congress cut off the funds by a veto-proof majority. Gerald Ford vetoed it, and he lost. Then we had the boat people and all the other horrors that followed from that. But Congress exercised its spending clause power. That is the check on the president, not the War Powers Act. They can't pass a statute and say, look at us, we've amended the Constitution. I don't care what any court says, let alone the Supreme Court. I don't even believe it's been fully challenged in that regard. So now we have the so-called Tom Massey, Mr. Constitution, waving around the War Powers Act. I'm guessing Mike Lee will get in on it, some of the others, Rand Paul. Look at this, we have a War Powers Act, 1973. That's right, 1973. It's not in the Constitution. You can't alter the balance of power and the various authorities given to one branch or another with a statute, whether you want to or not, whether you claim to be a constitutionalist or not. And so the use of the War Powers Act is nothing more than to try and prevent Donald Trump, who's been very judicious, very prudential, very careful about what he's doing. To take steps now, if should he choose to do so, to help destroy these nuclear programs, these nuclear sites. You're going to sit around and wait till what? Are they on vacation? I don't even know. They can't even get a damn budget with tax cuts passed. We want power over war. You don't get power over this. We have the right to declare war. You do. But your power to, quote unquote, challenge a war or end the war is the power of the purse, not the power of declaration. The Declaration is an affirmative act. And every military campaign is not a full-on war. It's not a full-on war. So now they're going to cite what is an illegitimate statute, an unconstitutional statute that steals power from the commander-in-chief, gives it to Congress, while these clowns sit on their ass and debate what? Unlike the treaty provision, which is quite specific. Quite specific. And so these radical libertarians, these isolationists, throwing in with the Democrats like Tlaib and Omar and the rest of the hate America crowd, all they're trying to do is obstruct, undermine, handicap. Because if the President of the United States was truly bound by every decision when it comes to national security that involves a battle or more than one battle to get approval from Congress, then we'd never be safe. Ever. And then the whole point of a commander-in-chief would be irrelevant. Utterly irrelevant. The framers didn't say we have a commander-in-chief and hopefully one day they'll pass a War Powers Act to limit him. It doesn't say that. Congress shall declare war. But every military campaign is not a war. It's not a full-on war. I'm sorry if people are upset about this. That's the way it is. And so now we have, the Marxists trying to seize power from the president through their courts. Now we have the radical libertarian isolationists throwing in with Bernie Sanders and AOC and that ilk, trying to undermine and seize power from the power of the presidency. So my advice to Mr. Massey, my advice to Mr. Paul, and Manny Mo and Jack, and the Marx Brothers, and everybody else in Congress, stop pissing up the wrong tree. If you think you can really stop the president, and you really want to stop the president, then use the power of the purse. Here's their problem. The president has to sign it, and they don't have a veto-proof number on this, so they want to skirt it. That's why. I'm just being honest with you. They want to accuse him of, you violated the War Powers Act, which he should. By the way, every president should, in my humble opinion. This is another straw man, another fig leaf to what they really intend here. Now, can you remember, ladies and gentlemen, the last time we've discussed the War Powers Act, the War Power Act? Can you? It's not under a Democrat, is it? When we were funding Ukraine, did that require the triggering of the War Power Act? If it did, I didn't hear anybody talk about it. Did you? Now, unlike most people, I guess, I support supporting Ukraine. That's not my question. Whether you support Ukraine or not, or whether you, unbelievably support Putin, that's not my question. You never heard anybody talk about the War Powers Act on the Democrat side. I don't remember Massey talking about it. Maybe he did. But he's such an irrelevant squeak when he speaks, it doesn't really matter. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. There's no authority, none in the Constitution, for Congress to interfere with actions this president may take to knock out these nuclear sites, other than the spending clause of the Constitution. So why doesn't Congress go there? Because they don't have the votes. Well, they may have a vote for a majority, but they don't have a vote for an override, because the president would surely override a vote. And they don't have the supermajority number. So what does Massey do, and what are the others doing? They're trying to use this War Powers Act that was passed as a statute in 1973. Now, if they wanted to change the way things work, how come they didn't go for a constitutional amendment? Because they don't have the votes. And they wanted the support of the state legislatures. So they're acting like Marxist Islamists, aren't they? Going around the system while raving around the Constitution. So what's a declaration of war? Declaration of war means, and has historically meant, that only Congress has the power to declare war. Now, when you're trying to knock out nuclear sites in an Iranian country, that's not a full-on war. We're not even sending infantry over there. We're not sending tanks over there. We have bunker buster bombs and so forth and so on. The Israelis are fighting the war. And so this isn't to be semantical. I'm talking about traditionally, historically, precedentially, how this nation has conducted itself when it comes to war. For example, if we decided that we're going to have a full-out war against Communist China, we would need a declaration of war against Communist China. Or full-out war against the Islamist regime in Iran. We've had anything but that. We've had a incredibly restrained commander-in-chief. Brilliant strategy right up to this point, too. We don't have a full-out war. And we're not going to have a full-out war against Iran. And so these are obstacles being thrown up to undermine our military, to undermine the commander-in-chief, to undermine the state of Israel. And believe it or not, Tom Massey and his ilk can dress up what they're doing as a constitutional issue, but it's not. They're siding with the Islamo-Nazi regime that wants to blow us off the face of the earth. And so are these phony isolationists. I'll be right back. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
Should have said South America there. You know what? I'm on Hannity's show tonight. Hannity on Fox. And I don't think Sean's been in the show for well over a year. I wanted him to come on the program. Sean Hannity, how are you, brother?
What's up? Thank me. God bless us. How am I? What's up with that? I haven't been on the Levinite show in a long time. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you, buddy. Well,
by the way, I will tell you.
Yes, sir.
You had the cutest picture in the New York Post today. I still get the hard copy, even though I'm down.
Hold on. Am I in the New York Post today? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you're on page 7. And not isolationism.
I'm not wearing a bikini or anything. You know, normally that's what they do.
Well, I mean, they only have your headshot, so I'm not really sure what the hell you're wearing, but that's up to you.
Okay.
I don't make judgments. We live in a DEI,
I do.
You know.
Yes. Okay.
We live in a woke DEI.
Yes.
You know, men can play women's sports world, so what do I know?
Yes, yes.
So I will tell you this. The piece was excellent, and I'm not sucking up to you. And the idea that you point out, you know, first of all, it's funny. Donald Trump created the MAGA movement.
Yes.
He's the author of it. He is the MAGA movement. And, you know, I tell people will ask me a lot of times, what do you think replaces Trump? I'm like, you don't ever replace Trump. You worked in the Reagan administration. Mm-hmm. And so many Republicans tried to be Reagan. And they studied his speeches, and they echoed his speeches, and they said the same thing. Guess what? None of them were Reagan. There's only one Reagan. There's only one Trump. Enjoy it while you can. I tell people all the time, it doesn't mean we don't have great people. We actually have a very deep bench of very strong conservatives. But the best part of this piece was, you know, going up against this ridiculous idea that isolationism is America first. It is not. What is at the heart of the MAGA movement? Trump says it in every speech. It's really common sense. And common sense when it comes to a nuclear-armed Iran is self-evident. It's not anything, it's not that deep. Now, people say, well, wait a minute. We got involved in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it became a long, drawn-out conflict. Well, if you look at if we were to call something the Trump doctrine that has emerged in this moment is that something that he said, and I've traced it back. The first time I can find that he first said Iran can never have nukes was 2011, Mark Levin. Wow. 2011. I'm going to show this on TV tonight. And he has said it often, many times since. When I was with him in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, depending how you like to say it. When I was with him in the UAE, Abu Dhabi, you would have loved it there. But
they would have loved me too.
Thank me.
Any synagogues there, by the way?
Actually, there was in Abu Dhabi. No, there really was. There was a cultural center that had all of the world's religions, including a Jewish temple. It was actually probably one of the more.
Were there any Jews in there?
Yeah, there were.
Okay. Would you bring them with you on the plane? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mark, stop. Now I've lost my whole trend of thought. I have no idea. But what the president is saying and has said consistently throughout his life and career and has not wavered, because it is common sense. Common sense is the heart of Donald Trump and his instincts, and that is the Trump doctrine that has emerged, is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It defies all common sense if you don't see the danger when the number one state sponsor of terror that has repeatedly said they're going to wipe Israel off the map, wipe America off the map, the little Satan, the great Satan. You know, I've raised this question with my audience. And we all went through 9/11/01. We lost 2,977 Americans that day. And we lost many more since from 9/11 related illness as well. But we lost 2,977. You extrapolate out the population in Israel on October the 7th, that would be the equivalent of 40,000 dead Americans in a day. I'm not really sure what part of murder and rape and kidnapping and torture and beheading the left in this country doesn't quite understand. You know, how many rockets would it take fired into an American town or an American city before Americans rightly demanded that their government respond? Mm-hmm. Because I've been to Israel a number of times. You've been to Israel a number of times. Mm-hmm. I was shocked. You know, I was at the wall in Israel, and I couldn't believe a mob formed around me. People knew me, watched me, listened to me, and I was kind of blown away by it and very touched by it because they know that I support Israel, and I do so proudly. And it was just an amazing experience. But this country, Mark, has had to withstand hundreds of thousands of rockets. The vast majority of those rockets provided, funded by this terror regime, or as you call it, this Nazi regime out of Iran. They have been funding Hamas. They helped plan with the Quds forces, Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces, October 7th. They fund in Lebanon, Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad. They have been providing weaponry to the Houthi rebels out of Yemen. They also, you can include the Iraqi militia, the Syrian militia. Now they're firing the most powerful ballistic missiles they've ever had. Literally, you know, hundreds and hundreds at a time, wave after wave after wave. It's a miracle there hasn't been more death and destruction. The Iron Dome, which I have seen in action up close and personal, and I've been in the tunnels, and I went to one border town, Mark. That border town's called Sderot. You can see Gaza with the naked eye. That poor town, when I had gone there the last time, was hit with 10,000 rockets. I went there on one day. I came back the next day, and a kibbutz, which is a neighborhood, had been hit the night before by a massive rocket. Then I went to the back of the police station, and they literally had the years of the rockets that they've been able to recover and the level of progression in terms of the lethality of it all. And they're all designed for maximum human damage and death. Now, if they fired one rocket, let's say they fired it into Oklahoma or my free state of Florida, the end of them. America would demand it.
Let me put it to you this way: we almost went to war with Russia under Khrushchev when they brought ships in to put nuclear missiles in Cuba, and they were forced to take them back and turn around. We don't even allow a nuclear weapon anywhere in this hemisphere. We don't allow weapons anywhere in this hemisphere that could endanger America. And when you look at Israel, you have a country that's shooting ballistic missiles into that country. They want atomic weapons, nuclear weapons rather. They've slaughtered people in kibbutzes. But here's what gets me, Sean. Let me ask you about this before you have to go. They took out Nasrallah, who slaughtered American Marines, who also slaughtered American citizens in 2 embassies, all backed by Iran. They have all but taken out Hamas, which is funding terror front groups in the United States of America, groups that have links to Hamas in the United States of America, and so forth and so on. They are taking on the Iranians, which obviously seek long-distance intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads on them. Is there a sane human being in the United States of America that doesn't root for Israel? How nuts do you have to be?
A lot of nutty people, but I don't really care about them. I really don't, because they're not the ones that are in charge. And I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here.
They seem to think they are, though, don't they?
Well, a lot of people think they are, and they're absolutely, they're atrociously. They're atrociously ignorant in my view. I don't get into the personality of it all, but I will tell you, what Joe Biden did, it's not just that they lied about his cognitive state. It's not that they lied about the economy and it was inflation transitory. They allowed into this country somewhere between 12 and 20 million unvetted illegals, among them known terrorists. We have Iranian assassination squads. Donald Trump had to duck and dodge and weave, and the Secret Service go crazy trying to find them. They still haven't found them. We have murderers, rapists. We have cartel members, gang members, other violent criminals, and drug dealers that Joe Biden let in. And now Donald Trump has to get rid of them. Now, I have been saying that I always add, I pray to God that I'm wrong, Mark. I don't think I'm going to be proven wrong, but I say it's a matter of when, not if. Those people that he and Mayorkas and Kamala Harris let into this country, there's going to be a lot more blood on their hands. They already have Laken Riley's blood on their hands. They have Jocelyn Nungary's blood on their hands. They have Rachel Morin's blood on their hands. I used to scroll the names during the campaign, all the people murdered and raped and victims of violent crime. And then you have this Democratic Party. They had the audacity during the joint session of Congress. They couldn't stand for the mothers that lost their children because of Biden and Harris and Mayorkas, and frankly, the complicit Democrats and complicit media that stood by. They either spread the lie that the border was closed and secure, or they stood by silently, knowing damn well it was the most preventable national security threat, and they didn't sound the alarm. So I have no sympathy for these people.
Before we break, tell us who your guests are tonight on Fox.
Let me see. We have a really good guest on tonight. Who is it? Oh, that's right. The great one. You're on tonight. But who
else?
We have Trey Yanks. He's in Tel Aviv. Boy, he's been doing great work.
Yeah.
We have Ted Cruz on tonight. We have the Majority Leader Thune on tonight. And Aaron Cohn has been great. He's on tonight, too.
By the way, the Israelis are launching new attacks against Iran as we speak. So
Mark,
one last point.
There's a lot happening. There's going to be a lot happening in the next week.
One last point. Should the president pull the trigger here, if he does, I mean, we expect, and I believe our fellow Americans are going to rally around the president, rally around our military, rally around our ally and their military, Israel, against this diabolical, evil, primitive enemy. Is that not the case?
Can I just say something, Mark?
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
We own the sky. Thanks to the Israelis, we own the skies over all of Iran. Do you realize if the Israelis or the U.S. in a joint effort together, if they wanted to destroy their entire energy grid, which is gas-driven, they could knock it out tonight? If they wanted to knock out any capacity for them to ever make any money, they could knock out all of their refineries tonight because they're clustered on one island. If they want to knock out the supreme leader, they could do that tonight. Trump even said as much. All that was said was that they can't have nuclear weapons, especially based on their history of fomenting terror and the number one state sponsor of terror. Now, they wouldn't agree to. Donald Trump gave them every opportunity. Now it's going to be done for them. The mission will be completed. And for those people that are saying, oh, forever war, forever nothing. It's not mutually exclusive. You can have enough common sense to remove the potential of a Holocaust in our lifetime. And I don't say that lightly, and you know that. But it would be a risk of that because these people have shown they don't care. They're firing at Tel Aviv, one of the largest cities in Israel, indiscriminately trying to kill men, women, and children.
Well, we're going to have to.
Israelis are firing at military targets. So if anyone doubts that they'd use that weapon, they are naive, ignorant, and stupid. And there are a lot of naive, ignorant, and stupid people out there, but I don't focus on them.
Not in our audience.
Thank God we have a president. But I'll tell you this.
I got to go.
Job and walk away.
First of all, you've been doing a fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic. You've walked through this for several weeks. You've had tremendous guests. And, as my brother, I'm very proud of you. You're doing a fantastic job, Sean. I'm serious. So God bless you, brother.
We're standing up for what is morally right and for simple, basic, fundamental common sense, which unfortunately for some is not too common.
No. All right. Tonight, Hannity, everybody. Hannity will be there. I'll be there. So many good people will be there. God bless us.
That's it. I'm done.
I'm done. And and thank me. Take care. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. Oh, yes. We'll have more talk on this War Powers Act probably tomorrow as a little bit of time goes on. Depending on the issue I'm asked about with Sean, I may hit on it tonight, too. We'll see. I'll definitely hit on it on one of my weekend shows, just so people fully understand what we're talking about here, because it sounds so, we got the War Powers Act, and Trump's violating it, and he has to come to us. It's got to be triggered. It's this, that, and the other. Now, by the way, he might trigger it, because the amount of activity that's going to occur in a very truncated period of time would be protected under the War Powers Act. It just depends if he wants to take it on or not. No president really has, and no Congress really has. They've kind of been at swords pointing at each other, but nobody wants to lose, you see. But if you're a real constitutionalist, you know it's unconstitutional. It's really that simple, and it's also the truth. Pete Hegseth on Fox yesterday. Cut 9, Mr. Producer. Cut 9, go.
What you're watching in real time is peace through strength and America first. Our job is to be strong. We are postured defensively in the region to be strong in pursuit of a peace deal. And we certainly hope that's what happens here. And America first means we're going to defend American personnel and American interests. So when you see jets and you see air defense assets and counter UAS assets, that's because my job as the Secretary of Defense is to ensure that our people are safe and that we're strong so that we can set the conditions for a deal. And President Trump's made it clear it's on the table. The question is whether Iran will take it.
He's also made it clear it is unconditional surrender or else. I have a little bit of a different view. Just be done with it. Get it over with. Regime change. Did I say regime change? Then I guess I did. Better yet, regime destruction. That regime needs to be destroyed. That's all. It needs to be destroyed in order to ensure our security and ensure they don't get missiles that can fire nuclear warheads here. I see Tulsi Gabbard become quite controversial. She's being cut out of meetings. Did you see that, Mr. Producer? Very wise. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Let me read to you what everybody keeps talking about, this piece in the Post. That would be the New York Post. I guess it was yesterday night, but it was in the paper itself. It was something I'd posted. The Jewish News Service carried it too. A number of services have carried it. I didn't send it to them. They just did. So I said, so tired of the isolationists barking about the old and failed foreign policy of the past. and insisting that they've uncovered the secret new way forward, isolationism. And by the way, there were some horrific things done in the past. There's some fantastic things done in the past. Where's the Soviet Union today? Where is it? If it were up to the isolationists, we'd be dealing with the Soviet Union. We'd be dealing with a powerful China. We'd be dealing with a nuclearized Iran. I mean, think about what they're saying. Think about what Bernie Sanders and his ilk are saying. So I said again, there's nothing new or good about isolationism, which in a word is appeasement. It's old and promotes war, such as World War II. Even worse, these knuckleheads can't coherently explain what they mean. Have you watched them on TV? They're too self-righteous in their ignorance to realize how absurd they sound. They don't agree among themselves about what the hell they're talking about. In fact, they're so blind and self-important, they don't see the new foreign policy taking place in real time right in front of their eyes. That's the mindset of ideological fanatics. We're witnesses to a foreign policy unlike any since Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Pope John Paul II defeated the Soviet Union. It's nothing like the recent failed policies we've seen in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are together demonstrating how to deal with a genocidal terrorist regime, how to use diplomacy and military power, how to use intel and special forces, how to use the media and public statements and more to defeat the biggest terrorist-supporting regime on the planet. It is and has been brilliant, and if all goes well, it will result in a transformed Middle East, an expansion of the Abraham Accords, and a world free of a nuclear terror regime. They are achieving what 47 years of prior policies have not. This is a very big deal. This is a real peace plan. Yet the isolationists, such as Chatsworth Carlson, are turning on our president. And they've spent months demeaning Netanyahu. Notice they don't do that to a single Arab leader, not one. Notice they don't do it to the leader of the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran. I can't think of any time. They prefer the likes of Russian President Vladimir Putin, who apparently is more MAGA than Trump, according to them. Yes. The isolationists. They wind up turning themselves into pretzels, actually characterizing the Iranian regime as oppressed. Oppressed. Victimized. These reprobates have even been, these reprobates have never been MAGA. Not real MAGA. See, I make a distinction, folks, between real MAGA and fake MAGA. They've sought to hijack a movement they never created, claim to be its leaders and influencers, and redefine it to accommodate their own perverse ideological views, to the extent they can rationally explain them at all. They've clung to a movement they do not support, hence their hesitation in supporting our ally Israel, or outright opposition to it, in its righteous war of survival against the Iranian terrorist regime, which benefits the entire West. It is a regime that has killed and maimed Americans, sought to assassinate the American president, threatens Israel with nuclear annihilation, seeks to slaughter millions of Israelis, has spread death and mayhem in Lebanon, Yemen, Gaza, and Iraq, and has aligned itself with communist China, North Korea, and Russia. What else could go wrong? What else could go wrong? The isolationists tell us that to oppose this is to be a warmonger, an anti-MAGA. Really. Just close your eyes and cover your ears. They also don't seem to care that they attract Marxists, Islamists, and anti-Semites. Some even openly promote and celebrate them. That's not MAGA either. Trump is a proud American patriot. He despises bigots, and he has done more than any president ever to fight anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism in our country. No, they're not MAGA, but we've seen their like before. That's the piece that's sort of being picked up everywhere. Let's see here. Give me 1 second, folks. Yes. My printer. I'm not trying to complain. It's not working, so I can't print these things out very well. In fact, at all. Now, let's do this. Air Force One, Donald Trump. What about a ceasefire, Mr. President? Because this Macron, who is a quisling, he's Vichy France. wants to create a Palestinian state. They've destroyed their country with the open borders, so the Islamists have moved from the Middle East in waves. In France, especially in the Paris suburbs, they've lost control of their country. And so Macron figures he'll keep playing to that particular group and their constituency on the left and play up his role against the state of Israel. This is what's happening. As I said, revolution or the spreading of Islamicism through immigration. Here's the president. Now, there's some noise from the airplane talking about, let's go to cut 2. No, we're not going to have a ceasefire. Go.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that will be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Are you closer? Are you possible? Is that possible in the next 24 hours?
Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible. Yeah.
He said complete surrender, unconditional surrender, something I said on my Sunday show. He's right. John Fetterman. The media every now and then, they're taking a run at this guy to tell you there's something wrong in between his ears, when in fact there's nothing wrong. There was at one point, there's no question about it, but certainly not now. Very sober in terms of his thinking and his conclusions. These are the kind of Democrat that we used to see throughout the country. Pennsylvania has always sent Democrats like this to the Senate. But very rarely now, very rarely. You even see radical left-wing kook Democrat senators coming out of states like Georgia and so forth. Well, Fetterman is not that. He's fairly moderate. Cut 8, go.
Of course, I'm always going to stand with Israel through this. Now, if I'm an outlier...
And by the way, he's not Jewish, just for you people who sort of keep track of these things. Go ahead.
I guess perhaps I'm unapologetically very pro-Israel. And now here, it's what's true is that Iran has nuclear ambitions, 100%. And now we can't ever allow them to acquire a bomb. And now what's also true is that they have created the proxies. They have Hamas and Hezbollah, so now let's hold them accountable for this. And again, we absolutely magnificent what Israel has done since Saturday when this launched as well. Done with such precision and lethality, and we want to support that. Now, I think we absolutely got to follow them into this and take out the nuclear facilities, because it might not even a true path for real peace in the region. Now, because now taking out Iran at this point, that's necessary if you ever have a chance to have any real peace in the Middle East.
I don't really see real peace in the Middle East anytime soon when you see how the Palestinians raise their babies and their children and their teenagers to kill Jews. I don't really see that. I don't see the Muslim Brotherhood, home base in Egypt, all of a sudden saying, okay, we're going home, Islamic Jihad, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. I don't see them saying, okay, we're out of here. I don't see a lot of real peace in the Middle East. I see growing peace, but fundamentally no. The reason the Iranian regime needs to be taken out is because of the human genocidal disaster that they would represent. It, as I said, it's a 7th century primitive throwback barbarian regime with 21st century weapons. That's what it is. More Fetterman. Let's move up. Cut 7, Mr. Producer. Go.
I think they should have targeted him. Absolutely, taken him out. I think the way Israel operates, they just take out the leadership, just like they did with Hezbollah, and they've already done that with the Iranian leadership. Just
now,
took them out.
Let me ask you folks a question. Doesn't he sound more coherent than, say, Tim Kaine or AOC or Chris Murphy or Bernie Sanders? He sounds great. The others sound like they have head issues. Go ahead.
Take down the whole building. They actually targeted where they lay in bed, and now they eliminated the military ones and the nuclear ones. That's magnificent, and the precision which they've done that, and I don't know why they would have left the leader out.
What comes after that if that reality were to take place, Senator?
Well, I think the reality is that...
I have to be honest. We hear this question all the time, and Bill knows the answer, and Brett knows the answer. We don't know. So I'm just wondering, what is the purpose of a question like that? Is it we shouldn't take out an Islamist terrorist regime that's tried to kill our president, wants to blow up our country, wants to blow up Israel, and is behind the slaughter of over 600 American troops, casualties of over several thousand. I mean, what comes next? Nobody knows what comes next. On the one hand, you know, the isolationists say no democracy building. On the other hand, we're getting the questions from the press. What comes next? The people of Iran will decide what comes next. Go ahead.
Just is in a position where they have to be held accountable for what they've done. They are the ones that built and created the proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah and put our whole region in this kinds of chaos. And now they clearly have nuclear ambitions. And now I think it's entirely, I'm not sure if I might have been the only one, constantly calling them to just take this facility out and to use the B-2 and those gigantic bunker buster ones and partner up with Israel, what they've done.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. He's excellent. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's take some callers here. People have been waiting. Hello, and hello. Here we are. I'm waiting. There it is. Popped up. JB, St. Augustine, Florida. How are you, sir?
Hey, how are you, Mark?
Let me look. I'm great. Thank you.
It's nice talking with you. Thanks for taking the call.
Thank you.
You brought up Tulsi Gabbard.
She kind of brought up her... Actually, the president dealt with her, but yes.
Excuse me. Before the break, you had brought her name up.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if people haven't viewed it. They should pull her Hiroshima video up.
Oh, it's sickening.
Well, we know it's horrific, and you know, she didn't go into you know, that bomb saved hundreds of thousands of American and Japanese lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't have to get into the whole history there, Mark. People should know it, but I was wondering if you knew if she was there in an official capacity. And
well, I don't have the August, but if you are the director of national intel and you're going there, you're certainly going to be treated. I mean, I don't know how many people vacation, right, in Hiroshima, but I have to assume she was there in the official capacity. I'm sensing, again, you look at the tea leaves, you look at things that are being said, that they're giving her distance. She hasn't been in all the meetings. She wasn't at Camp David. Mr. Producer, do we have where the president was asked about her and her view on intelligence and what he said? We have that cut. Can you find that? All right, here, I'm going to play cut one for you now. Go.
Mr. President, you've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon. But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close. They are very close. Everybody knows it, except Tulsi. And there's something I can't really comment on right now because, again, I want more substance, more sort of authoritative sourcing. But there's a lot out there about leaks, what offices are leaking, who's leaking. And we're going to keep an eye on this because when you leak against a president who's trying to make national security and life and death decisions because you're trying to create pressure against that president, undermine him. And today he really lashed out at Axios and this clown, Ravid, who I've been warning the world about, who writes for Axios, and believe it or not is Israeli, but certainly doesn't seem it. Then if you're doing that and you work at the White House, you need to go. You need to be fired. Thank you for your call, my friend. Let's keep going. Mike, Chicago, Illinois, the great WLS. Go.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Okay.
All right. So, I'm in Chicago. I've supported the president for 10 plus years, 45 years old. And the last couple of days, I've just been hearing a lot of this the back and forth between you and Tucker and other people. And in my personal opinion, I think you guys are kind of splitting the base here. I mean,
all right, don't be an a-hole, pal. I'm not sitting here splitting bases, building bases. I'm commenting on what I see. I'm not a political activist. And if you expect me to be quiet because I offend your friend Tucker, who does not represent the base, he represents whatever he represents, that ain't happening now. It's never going to happen. You understand? When I have a guy who's got a conga line of anti-Semites coming on, when I've got a guy who's now undermining my president of the United States, no, we're not going to be quiet. And you lied to my call screener, didn't you? So we know who you support, brother. We'll be right back.
Plastic conservative fire. The Mark Levin Show. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
Right after this program, in just about 30 minutes, less actually, I will be sprinting from here to a studio to be doing Sean Hannity's show on Fox. You won't want to miss that. All right, let's go to some callers here. Is this an old list? I don't think so. Is Marty still around, Rich? Marty, Long Island, New York. How are you, Marty?
Hey, Mark, I'm good. I've been listening to you for quite a while, and I always appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
It seems to me that I appreciate it. There's so much talk now about regime change. It seems like we're getting lost in that term. And I think although it's an intermediate and necessary step right now, the real end goal is the liberation of the people of Iran and the Middle East.
You won't get, I agree with you. You're not going to get enough support for that. It's not going to happen. It's like the liberation right now, protection of the people of Ukraine. You got to read the room, unfortunately, and the room is what it is. And so if people say, we're going to war for the liberation of the people of Iran, and I talk about the people of Iran more than anybody else, you're not going to get the kind of support that we need to take out this regime, which is first and foremost the nukes. And there is no deal that can actually be written or made. I don't care if it's the founding fathers who were brilliant. They could write up that prevents evil from being evil. That prevents the communist Chinese from providing them with the fuel for the ballistic missiles. That prevents the Russians from providing them with the ground-to-air missiles and all the rest of it. That's the point. We got to talk about American national security and then our allies' national security. I agree with you that these poor people have lived under this iron fist forever. But you're not going to be able to get a groundswell of support for that argument. No. Doesn't mean you can't make it, but I'm telling you, it's just not going to happen. How do I know? Because I've tried.
Yeah, it's too bad. I think it's a better approach than talking about.
It's not a better approach. It's not going to work. All right, I don't disagree with you substantively. And I think the best approach is to explain to people, you have a country that wants to blow us off the face of the earth with nuclear weapons. That seems to me to be the number one priority for American intervention. All right, my friend, I appreciate your call very much. Very kind. Thank you. Let's keep going. Michael, Joplin, Missouri. How are you, Michael?
I am great, Mark. How are you doing? As usual, I'm sure you're great.
Thank you. Well, let me look. Yes, I am, especially.
My biggest issue with this whole Iran-Israel thing is we spent too much time with this crap of appeasement, negotiations.
47 years. 47 years. The first thing they did is take all of our people hostage out of the embassy for 400 and some days till Ronald Reagan stepped in and scared the crap out of them. But you're right. This has been going on almost half a century. I don't know how many more discussions or this, that, or the other we need. I don't know what these isolationists are thinking. I don't even care what they think anymore.
Exactly. If we had let Patton go into Russia when he wanted to, we wouldn't be dealing with Russia right now. If we hadn't drawn that stupid parallel line in North Korea, we wouldn't be worrying about North Korea right now. And Vietnam, that's another whole nother story. Drawing that stupid line.
Well, don't you find it amazing that people keep talking about we don't want forever wars? I think 47 years is a forever war, don't you?
I agree, 100%.
Enough is enough. Say the president wants to put an end to it. Oh, you're not MAGA. Yes, he's MAGA. He is MAGA. He created it. 77 million voters. I find it really incredible. The self-importance and self-righteousness, which we call narcissism, Well, people claim that they represent all these people. They don't. I don't even claim to represent all these people. I never have.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is you always hear the same thing. It's always everybody says or an anonymous thing. It's
yeah, exactly.
No, give me some freaking facts. Otherwise, end it and let's get this done with.
I agree. Let's get it over with. They're on their backs, for God's sakes. Thank you for your call. Excellent call, Michael. It's because he's from Missouri. That's the show me state, but I think it's more like the smart state. Eduardo, Oakland, California, listening on the great KSFO. Eduardo, how are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Levin, I'm sorry, but I have a blast. When I was talking to the screen, it's like I said, please forgive my passion about this. These guys that just called it, I'm going to use the word I use, are the reprobate that just called you before. Mm-hmm. Saying that, he's dividing the MAGA movement. There is no division. I'm tired to hear this over and over. Listen, I listen to you, sir, as well as Hannity, and you being constant, saying Mr. Hannity and others about the dangers of nuclear Iran. And the President Trump has been saying this for more than a decade. Mm-hmm. So what is it? You don't have to wait for Mark Levin or Hannity. Just common sense dictates that regime in Iran with a nuclear weapon is not a danger not only to Israel, but to the world, the entire world.
Let me ask you a question. Eduardo, it says here you're from Venezuela. So if the communist, brutal, genocidal regime in Venezuela, pretty close to the United States as things go, if they were acquiring a nuclear weapon, do you think the United States will put up with that?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I said to Corey. It's like,
not for a minute.
See these mullets not for a minute. It's like in Iran, these people are oppressing their own people. That's another thing people have to know. They're oppressing. I talk to Iranian people. They're oppressed like the Venezuelans. It's the same version what we have in Venezuela. These people, they don't want the well-being of the Western civilization. They want to destroy it and have a different change. And they will not hesitate, Mr. Levin, to use the nuclear weapon. And I'm very sorry to hear that people are trying to, you know what, I'm thankful that you're straightforward. I'm glad what President Trump says. Marcus, tough as hell. Yes, you have to with these people. Call them out. Sir, call him out. When I read the stupid Twitter of Tucker, I listened to him sometimes. When I did the interview with Putin, it's like, well, where is this guy going? But it's like, honestly, accusing you and Hannity and others.
It means nothing. Look. Can I tell you something? These people are panicking. They're desperate. They're losing the substantive argument. Not to me, to the American people. The American people are not stupid. They're not stupid. Their audiences are finding out. You know, these grifters and so forth, the things that they say are just so outrageously stupid. They're illogical. And then when you put on top of that human experience with evil regimes, it's just preposterous, and people are figuring that out. Now, the D.C. media and their entrails, they like these fights and so forth and so on. Look, I'm happy to wear the brass knuckles. I'll wear them as long as I have to. It is what it is. But I'm a person of substance, too. So while I mock these guys and humiliate these guys, I'm more interested in the substance. But, you know, in many ways, like Trump's a counterpuncher. So am I. I don't throw the first punch, but if you're going to throw the punch, it better hit the spot, because otherwise you've awakened a sleeping, not that I'm a giant, a sleeping Levin. All right, my friend, thank you for your call. Although I never sleep. That's the funny thing. Mr. Producer thinks he found something to help me. I hope you're right, Rich. All right. Where are we here? Oh, let's take another caller. Let's go to Rob, Roseville, Michigan. How are you, Rob?
Hey, how you doing? You sound like you're on top of your game today.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's funny. You know what? What is today? Tuesday? Friday, I was so beat. I finished and I said to Rich, that was a terrible radio show. I'm very upset about it. Not because of the substance, just because I was so exhausted. And, the show must go on, brother. You got to go on no matter what. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
A couple of things real quick. I think the most we're going to get into Iran is maybe securing their ports and maybe helping out with a little bit of air cover while the people try and figure out something to do, since we let President Carter destroy that country and cause a lot of.
He sure did, didn't he?
Years.
Wow.
Also, I'd like to know how. I don't think. Would you familiarize yourself with the Supreme Court ruling Minor versus Happersett? It's the most excruciatingly detailed explanation of what a natural-born citizen is I've ever read.
I've read that decision, and natural-born citizenship is fine, but it has nothing to do with birthright citizenship.
That's right.
That's a concoction.
It explains that voting is not a right; it's a privilege you're granted.
That's correct too. But what you're getting at, I think, is we don't treat it that way today, do we?
I also want to ask you one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just heard today that Kash Patel had run into those documented fake driver's licenses that were showing up in the country back in 2020 and mid-2020, and they tried to cover it up. But I know of about 22,000 Michigan driver's licenses and about 60-something thousand Texas driver's license. One group was found at O'Hare Airport from China, and another was found in Houston from China. And that's probably one of the reasons why Bill Paxton wouldn't let them continue counting ballots after the 2020 election.
And what happens is our guys who are patriotic, not all the Republicans, who step in, they see what's happening, they try to deal with it. It's very difficult to uncover it all and its roots after the fact. They're made to look like fools. Oh, look at this, election deniers. All right, my friend, thank you for your call. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I'll be on Hannity in a few minutes, actually. You never know what's going to happen there. You never know what I'm going to say. Kind of like here. I organize, but then I say things that I'm thinking about and so forth. All right, let's see. What do we have here? Bear with me, America. I want to get a couple more callers in here. If we can, let's go to Dustin. Naples, Florida, the great WSKY. Dustin, how are you, sir?
I can't believe I'm talking to the great one, sir. How are you? It is an honor.
Oh, thank you. Very good. Thank you.
You have no idea how much of an honor. I'm a Rush baby, and since we lost him, it's you and Sean and Glenn Beck that have kept me sane, and you kept me positive. And thank God we got President Trump, sir.
Amen.
But I'm going to tell you what, it blows my mind, and I could talk to you for an hour, but let me just get to the point because I know you're short. This is the deal, right? If we don't back up what Israel is doing now, Iran is going to come in, and they're going to fire a missile, and they're going to fire a missile, and they're going to obliterate Israel, and then they're going to come for us. And if you don't think, and I don't mean you, I'm talking to the people who stand out here and say we should just not get involved. If you don't think that they cannot do it, they've already got the missile that can reach our shores. I promise. We've got to back Israel. We've got to do this now. Now is the time. They've started this, and we cannot leave them out to dry, sir. I thank you so much for everything
buddy.
You do, and I'm looking forward to getting your new book as well.
Thank you.
I've got every one of them.
You're a sweetheart. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. AJ, Savannah, Georgia, on the Mark Levin app. AJ, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Mark. It's an honor talking to you.
Thank you.
It's like I told your call screener, I don't know where Tucker went off. I don't understand it. But I support Israel, whatever Israel has to do to wipe out that regime. Because first of all, I feel that I know a lot of Persian people, but when it comes to the Muslims, Arabs and all that, I don't think they will ever be our friends. Never.
Well, the ones who are being trained, the Palestinians who we know, we found their books and all the rest of it, and others, like in Iran, as you point out, but they're not alone, who are being indoctrinated to hate America, to hate Jews, to hate Americans. It's going to be very difficult to reverse that. So it's not, we Westerners, not you obviously, but Westerners, we think they think like us. That's not how they think. The Islamists, not Muslims per se, the Islamists, that's not how they think. And by the way, you're going to like that in my book on power too. I can't wait till I have one to hand some out to a gentleman like you, But the fact of the matter is they don't think this way. And so that's why I'm calling them primitives and throwbacks and barbarians. That's the regime, not the people, the regime. And they impose their will on a civilization that has no modernity. The Persian people are highly educated, many professionals, and then this throwback regime comes in by force, starts executing. You know, this Khomeini, the first one, he executed like 30,000 people in the first year or two. Just took them right off the streets, teachers, lawyers, broadcasters, whatever you have. He just executed them. And now, of course, they've had more executions in the last 12 to 18 months than they've had in 5 years. They're desperate to hang on to power, desperate. My view is they're on their back. There's no document on the face of the earth that can contain them, or the Russians supporting them, or the Chinese supporting them. This is the moment. God Almighty himself, I believe, has presented this to us. Yes, we back the Israelis and the United States military. I'll see you on Hannity. I salute all you heroes out there. God bless you for being here. I'm greatly honored. Take care.